Welcome to the Conscious Living Podcast, conversations to educate, empower, and enlighten our world. An uplifting and inspiring series of conversations and talks with your host, Jackie Woodside. We are educating minds, empowering lives, and enlightening souls to create a world where love prevails. In this engaging podcast, we deliver exciting, positive, transformative talks and teachings designed to elevate your life. Now, let's join our host, Jackie Woodside, for this week's session.
Hello there, Jackie Woodside here, the founder and the host of the Conscious Living Podcast, where we, me and you, and our guest, Tiffany, are here to educate, empower, and enlighten our world. I just want you to take that in for a moment. What would it look like if our world was more enlightened? If people walked around actually feeling empowered with the truth of who they are, empowered with the actual knowing that we are every day in every way the active co-creators of the experience of life. I love that notion, and I know that you do too, and that's why you spend time with me here at the Conscious Living Podcast. So thank you. Thank you for being here. I'm really excited to bring to the Conscious Living Podcast today somebody who I find just incredibly talented and forward-thinking and just fascinating. Tiffany Cano and I have had the really blessed opportunity to talk about and collaborate on a number of different ideas and projects. She is the CEO of the Highly Perceptive People Academy. Isn't that cool? If I were ever to go back to school, I think that is the academy I would want to go to. So she's been getting paid. I love this. She's been getting paid for her healing services since she was 8 years old. How many of you can say that? Many empaths, intuitives, and transformational workshop leaders, coaches hire her to help them get beyond their blind spots to be better at holding space and not being so overwhelmed with life itself and their work. She's going to be featured in one of the films that I'm working on, but also 2 others. I mean, who does this? She's being featured in 3 films in 1 year with A-list transformational authors, speakers, and herself included. My film, The Frequency of Miracles, Tiffany is one of our cast members. The Pillars of Power and the Rise of the Lioness. My gosh, Tiffany, there is so much that you and I could talk about. I could go on. I probably shouldn't do a half-hour intro because then we can't have a show, right? I could go on. But Tiffany Cano, welcome to the show. Why don't you just say a couple more things about yourself, maybe explain why you were getting paid for your healing services at 8 years old, wherever you want to dive in, but help our audience get to know you a little bit better.
Thank you so much, Jackie. Yes, I was doing something at my dad's barn. He's a horse trainer that looked like massage. And he saw me and he called me over to him and he said, "You should charge for that." I said, "Really?" He's like, "Yeah, $1 for 10 minutes. So I did. So that was my first entrepreneurial experience doing healing. He had no idea what I was doing. Actually, when he found out, like a few years later, he was freaked out. Like the Catholic in him was kind of,
Wow. So wait, at 8 years old, did you have a sense that you were doing energy work and energy?
Yeah.
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 So
I mean,
tell me about
since I
that.
was a toddler, I could see energy. I assumed everybody could, and just put my hands on an owie and it'd feel better. So yeah, it wasn't until later that I realized not everybody can see in 3D, you know, and has these skills.
That is so cool. So Tiffany, that's a segue. Is that what your Highly Perceptive People Academy is about? And if not, tell me what it is about, because that just sounds so fascinating. The Highly Perceptive People Academy. I wish I would have come up with a name like that. That's just so tell us what that is and how you use that academy as a way to help people transform.
Well, a lot of us empaths, we're feelers, and we're also pretty darn intuitive and mostly on the spiritual conscious side. And so to me, the perceptive allows for all of the different clairs, not only the clairsentient from empathy, but the clairvoyance for seeing, the clairaudience for hearing, the claircognizance for knowing. And so being able to tap into those and for most empaths, they need to actually turn it from like being oversensitive and kind of like a curse into a gift. So I actually find those things to be a superpower. However, growing up, I was pretty overwhelmed by them until I learned some techniques and ways to desensitize, how to have healthy energetic boundaries so that I wasn't feeling everything and sponging up everything.
Yeah, no, I definitely get that. It's really hard being in like crowded places, around a lot of people or a lot of chaos, and particularly crowded places that have kind of a low vibe to them. It's almost, it is physically uncomfortable to be around that kind of energy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's gotten a little bit easier. I mean, I still don't love it, but being able to have healthy energetic boundaries
Tell us about
changed
that.
me.
Yeah, what does that mean? And then how do people, because I'm assuming people that are listening to you and I are also probably, HSPs, highly sensitive
Mhm.
people, empaths. I love your podcast, by the way. I didn't mention this earlier, but The Soul of an Empath. I love that. You're a title maven. That's a great,
Thank you.
The Soul of an Empath. But
It was a divine download on that
yeah,
one.
for sure. So tell us about establishing healthy energetic boundaries.
Okay. So first, we need to clarify what those are because most people think that, oh, I expressed a boundary and then that person just stepped all over it and didn't honor or respect the boundary. And I'm looking clairvoyantly and I'm seeing it and I'm like, no, that's actually a defensive wall or a defensive guard. And there's at least 17 different types of defensive walls, guards, and shields that I see. Some of the common ones, especially for us empaths, are like walls of numbness, where you don't really feel it because it's numb. And it also kind of can trap some emotions underneath. And because it's enveloped in this numbness, you might not even know the wound that still needs to be healed. And another couple of walls, fiery, like walls of fire and usually associated with anger,
Yeah.
frustration, irritation.
Yeah.
Sometimes I might see kind of like a medieval shield, you know, trying to guard and protect, but that guarding and protecting keeps a lot of good energies from coming in and out.
Yeah.
And it's not always around the entire being of the person either. So they're still left vulnerable. So that's the first thing to note about, energy walls, where a boundary is like a filter. It can allow good energies to come in and out. You can be available for love, for peace, for joy, for money, for
Yeah.
prosperity and
All good things.
spirituality, right? And be unavailable for other people's anger, be unavailable for their victim mentality, be unavailable for their stress or fear or scarcity. And it's just a way to have graceful no's and just those clear yeses, clear no's. And it feels safer when
Mhm.
you actually own a boundary. And when I first was the first 15 years of doing boundaries, I looked at it more as like a cellular membrane around my space, like a space bubble. And then as I progressed, the ninja level was my entire being was just owning that boundary. It was just
Mhm.
like, this is what I'm available for, and this is what I'm unavailable for. It was just a way of being.
Yeah.
And so that helped me to stop or highly minimize picking up on other people's funky negative energies or moods or ailments and be able to differentiate what's mine and what's not mine.
Hmm. Tiffany, that's so interesting. I want to ask you two questions kind of at the same time, and you can decide how you want to respond. But what you're talking about in energetic boundaries and being able to filter out the negative energy and let the positive energy come in. On the one hand, I know a lot of people don't think this way, right? A lot of people are just out living their freaking life. And, they're running the errands and picking up the kids and caring for their parents. And, they're lifing, right? They're just, sometimes I like to turn life into a verb. People are just out lifing, right? They're living their life, right? So on the one hand, God, this sounds like so troublesome. So like, so now I have one more thing I have to think about, not just, how's my mom in assisted living and what time are the kids done soccer, but now I have to think about, do I have the proper energy filters? So on the one hand, for the people that just are too exhausted to even think about this, why bother? Hold on, I'm going to ask a second follow-up question. I want you to have both of them in your head. So for the people that are just too exhausted with life itself, you know what I'm talking about, right? The average kind of gal behind you at the coffee store, at the coffee shop, in line on her phone thinking about the kids. People are busy. People are stressed. So number one, why bother? And then the second question that I want you to have in your head as you think about how to answer this is, what does it cost you when you don't bother? What's the cost of actually living life through the lens of physicality, of just the kids in the car and the parents and the pissy neighbor next door and the teacher that didn't like me when I was a kid? You're living your life just through the lens of physicality, not thinking about energy. I don't have time for that. Tiffany, don't bother me with this, right? So on the one hand, God, look, I've got too much going on. Why bother? And then on the other hand, all right, but if I don't, what's that going to cost me? And you can go at that whole concept that I just laid out to you anyway to you. I'll be afraid my podcasts are not scripted, right? This is
I'm fine being in the flow. I love it.
Unplugged. No, I know you have the perfect answer to this because it came to me, and I trust that the energies are here guiding us because you and I both pay attention to it.
Mm-hmm. Well, there's a lot of people that are just kind of running around, walking around, spiritually asleep, consciously, maybe even like one eye open, one eye closed,
Right. Yeah.
partially
living.
awakened.
Yeah, that could be somebody else's podcast, the Semi-Conscious Living Podcast.
and so I think number one, for people who are wanting to be more conscious, they have to open up their eyes, right? They have to want to open them. And that requires seeing and feeling and being aware of energies and things that aren't always comfortable.
Yeah. And
I mean,
beyond the physical. I mean, I guess that's the thing, for people to really make that shift beyond just dealing with the physical plane. But exactly as you said, what you're not seeing, what you're feeling, what you're sensing in the energetic field, to honor that equally as much, if not more than what's happening in the physical.
I tune into the energetics more than somebody's words or their physical body. Like I look and see and feel that energy because it doesn't lie.
Right. So again, for somebody who's just like, they can't bother with this, what does that actually mean? You tune into someone's energy more than their words. For somebody who's either newer at this or, maybe not so new, but just can't focus on so many things at the same time, what does that actually mean to tune into somebody's energy?
Well, the same way that we look with our eyes and hear with our ears, we look with our spiritual eye. We hear with our intuitive faculties. It's a spiritual muscle, a skill set to be cultivated. And it grows naturally as people become more spiritually evolved and conscious. And then there's also various trainings that can help to, grow those muscles faster. If you want to be a spiritual athlete, you got to go to a spiritual gym, and do the workouts.
Yeah.
And when you are not wanting to allocate the time, the energy, the bandwidth what it often causes, you were talking about, well, what does it cost you?
Wait,
It
what's the
costs you sleep. It costs you peace. It costs you loving, beautifully connected, vulnerable, joy-filled relationships and partnerships.
That's so beautiful. And
It can,
peace of mind too, right, Tiffany?
yeah,
Peace of mind.
absolutely.
Yeah.
It can also cost you money. You know, there's a lot of money that can be missed because you're not opening up those spiritual faculties. I remember the first year that I consciously dropped my guards, walls, and shields and consciously was creating those healthy, energetic boundaries. My income doubled that year.
That's so great.
My relationships massively in a good way changed. There was more connection, more depth, more uh, just feeling connected in a way that I didn't have access to before because I was too afraid.
Yeah, yeah, that makes perfect sense. And I love that. If you could say more, what did you actually shift to pay more attention to those energetic boundaries?
Well, I imagined and willed myself to drop those defensive guards, walls, and shields. I also did what I could to heal the wounds that were underneath it that were causing me to put up the defenses in the first place. And then I went through a process of energetically, you know, being aware of and conscious of those boundaries. So, for example, here's a little here's a little space bubble. Okay, so for those of you who are only listening and not watching this video, I have a little snow globe with a unicorn in front of me, okay? So when you have energetic boundaries, you can have clear yeses where you bring in good energies, and you can have graceful nos. So what I first did was drop the defensive guards, walls, and shields, healed those wounds, and then started consciously being really, really clear with what I wanted to allow into my space or disallow. So I went through a process of saying, and if you want, I'll just kind of do a quick guidance. I'm not going to go through step by step because there's not
Sure.
enough time, but I could do a quick little,
Would love that.
walk through. Okay.
I love our podcast to be like super practical for people.
Okay. Okay. So with your non-dominant hand, for most of us, that's our left hand, put the first few fingers between your eyebrows. Okay. Then your dominant hand, I want you to face out, and you're going to instruct your space bubble, like your aura around your body. Okay. And you're going to instruct it in 360 degrees, saying these words and setting the energetics. I have clear, healthy, strong, firm, appropriate boundaries.
Appropriate boundaries. Nice.
Now you want to be sure that you're doing this in the front of you, the back. Most people miss the back, so be aware of your back. The right side, left side, above your head, below your feet. Have clear, healthy, strong, firm, appropriate boundaries in 360 degrees. Have clear yeses. Have clear nos. Can relax your hands. Notice how it got quieter, more peaceful, just with even that one little exercise.
Oh, very simple.
So that is an example of a macro boundary.
Okay.
Now, and that's how I started, right? Started with the macro. And then I started saying I have clear, healthy, strong, firm, appropriate boundaries. And then I'd go into different areas of my life. So I have strong, firm, appropriate spiritual space boundaries. I have strong, firm, appropriate, healthy mental space boundaries, emotional space boundaries, physical space boundaries. So I would go into each area. And those were kind of like my macro boundaries. And then a few years ago, it hit me. I really need to be even more clear, more refined. And then, like, it was maybe 5 years ago that the micro boundaries presented themselves. So it's like a strong, clear, healthy, firm, appropriate boundaries with my dad or with my, like certain people. And then I got even clearer. Like it was, I'm unavailable for my dad's scarcity. I'm unavailable for, fill in the blank. Like you can get super granular. So whenever you notice yourself getting triggered, you just refine the boundary even more because you might have missed something. So, I used to say I'm unavailable for my family's negativity, and then a holiday event would come up to test it.
Yep.
Right? Because that's life.
Yeah.
And then I noticed, okay, well, that was better. Now let's get a little more granular, right? Let's do a few more micros. And then it just improved over time.
Yeah. I love that. I love what you're saying about the intentionality, because it fits right in with the theme of living life consciously. I think the holidays, people go into the holiday season really unconscious without setting intention of having clear, firm, healthy boundaries with, family members over the holidays. We just went through a really contentious election season, and people got really dysregulated or upset. A lot of people are afraid of what's coming down the pike right now. So even that, like I have clear, firm, healthy, and appropriate boundaries around politics in our world.
Absolutely. That is actually one of the boundaries that I had to install, so to speak, in the last two elections with family because there's opposing sides within my family unit.
And most families, are going through that unless they happen to have a family that's all red or all blue. And it's so opposed, diametrical, and such polar opposites where we are today, which is really sad because certainly we didn't grow up with that level of division in the country. I mean, there's always been, human beings are human beings, right? There's always going to be stuff, but the level that we're at now, I think, is really this skill that you're teaching of setting clear, healthy, firm, appropriate boundaries is, and doing that intentionally, both at the macro level, in front, back, sides, and then at the micro level in all these various places. I want to take that into this next area I want to ask you about. You do work around, you call yourself the blind spot healer, which I think is so cool. Your ability to name things, you're the naming maven. But what does that mean for you and as part of your practice, the blind spot healer? And what can you teach people very quickly about our blind spots and how to reframe them?
Well, blind spots to me are what you can't yet see that's blocking you from the life that you want to achieve. So, for example, I can see what's happening in a subconscious level. Okay. So, for every 100 to 200 conscious thoughts we have, there's 11 million subconscious thoughts. So, if on the surface you're saying, I want to make money, I want to be super prosperous, and I'm looking at your subconscious and the 11 millions are screaming, I'm not worthy, or some sort of fear or negative imprint from your family about money, such as it's hard to make money or money doesn't grow on trees. And so within that subconscious, I'm looking at what are the imprints, what are the beliefs, what are the negative family legacies, what are the inner child wounds, what are the traumas that are not yet healed that are blocking you from the money you want, the relationships, the health and vitality, the spirituality. And oftentimes when we heal those core wounds and the common core wounds are loved, seen, heard, understood, belong, worthy,
Appreciated.
deserving. Yeah, like those are the common things. And so someone might come in because they want more money, but when you clear those types of core wounds, then it ripples out and directly affects their relationships and as well as their money and their self-confidence, right? So it has this really positive ripple effect. And when you heal those core wounds, and also as you create those healthier boundaries, you won't get so triggered in life. You'll be more neutral. You won't, even if someone brings up politics, some opposing thing, you won't feel so agitated or wanting to bark back because you're just in your peace place about it.
Nice. It's a beautiful way to be. And that takes time to develop, time to heal. I'm going back to that question I asked you, why bother and what happens if I don't, or what's the cost of not bothering of this? And I'm thinking about a company I was consulting to last year, and where I'm tying a bunch of things together with this story that we've talked about. I gave them what I thought was a simple exercise to do as a group, just a group activity, kind of team building activity. I gave them big pieces of the, paper that you pin up on the wall, and I put them in groups, and I said, come up with 25 things that you're grateful for about the company. And now I'm a big gratitudeless person, right? You said it takes practice. You use the phrase, you have to develop the muscle. And I didn't know that for me, 20 some years of a daily gratitude practice, let's just say I have a well-developed gratitude muscle. So I write a full page every day, full page of things that I'm grateful for. It's part of my practice. And so to me, it's like no big deal. So I give them these pieces of paper, and they're spread out around the room in groups of, 2 or 3 or 4, and they're looking there, and they've written down 3 things. And the goal was like, write down 25 things about the company that you're grateful for. I really did not think it was to be that big of a deal. They couldn't do it. They couldn't do it. They hadn't developed that muscle of being conscious. They had a blind spot. Now, if I would have given them the exercise, put up the pieces of paper on the wall with the sticky note paper, get in small groups and write down 25 things that you're annoyed about or that's not going
right. They would have filled up 3 pages.
They would have filled up 2 pages. Exactly right. So I'm sharing that example. Oh, and I want to go back to this, like, what does it cost you? One of the things you said is it costs you sleep. I do executive coaching with the CEO of that company, and not only does he have insomnia, and almost like a frozen shoulder. So as a joint thing, he has insomnia, and he has a skin condition where his skin is like all flaky, like a psoriasis, all over his face, all over his chest and forearms, very, very uncomfortable. And as we've been doing this work, all of those, and being more conscious leadership, all of those symptoms have abated.
Nice.
So, So going back to like, so what does it cost you? Maybe what Tiffany and I are talking about blind spots and being conscious and being highly perceptive and managing energy and having impeccable boundaries. Maybe it's just like, God, I can't be bothered. I got to get to work and feed the kids. Get to work and feed the kids and be conscious. Be intentional of your boundaries. Be intentional of what you want to create. Be intentional of that's kind of an oxymoron. Be intentional of your blind spots, but be curious of your blind spots. What are you not seeing in this conflict with your spouse or with your kid? How are you showing?
Yeah, what's the lesson behind it? What's the meaning that I just gave something and now I feel like crap about it,
Exactly, 100%. So I'm sharing that story really to just tie together everything we've said, that there's a tremendous why bother, like you said, better sleep, happiness, peace of mind, equanimity, joy, connection in relationships, gratitude, the ability to fill a page with things that you're grateful for rather than 3 pages of things that aren't going well. Like your ability to really craft and mold how you see the world and how you experience the world, I think is the most precious gift that we have. So anything else, Tiffany, that you want to leave people with before we wrap up today? I think we've given a lot of value in this conversation.
Well, There's several things actually, but I'll try to limit it.
Yeah, go ahead.
Well, our brain, from like a primal perspective, it's programmed to remember all the crappy, negative, fearful, potentially dangerous things that we could possibly have, in whether it's just a perception of danger or an actual danger. And so our brain is trained for that until you become on
Conscious.
this. Exactly. You become conscious. You're on this spiritual path. You want to change. You want to evolve. You want to grow. And then that's when the muscles of, okay, how can I look for the positive things? How can I look for the wins? How can I look for what to be grateful for? And as you do that, then the reticular activator in your brain, switches on and starts being like a Google search engine, searching for the 25 things you can be grateful for, up to 3 pages of great gratitude, right? Instead of just only 3, right? But you build that when you train your brain, when you train the reticular activator, particularly in your brain, to search for those good things, those empowering things. That's what you're going to see. That's what you're going to automatically notice and become aware of. And that takes, awareness, a little willpower, conscious decisions, and repetition.
100%. It's so great. Yeah, the negativity bias, countering the negativity bias that's built into our brain. Our brain is not there for us to thrive. It's there for us to survive. So you have to train your brain how to be an organ that is for your thriving. And you just simply have to tap in to this level of conscious living rather than be in your default mode. Your brain's default mode is be careful, watch out, they might get you. I'm not good enough, and I've got to be sure they don't find out. Whoever they is in the moment, Yeah, it is a learned capacity. And when you just shift focus a little bit to this level of conscious living, it makes such a profound difference in the living of your life.
Yes. And at first, it might feel strenuous, but then it becomes natural. It simply becomes your way of being. And then when you have moments of challenge, because life will throw them at you, but you can decide how you're going to choose to react. Are you going to let it take you out? Or are you going to acknowledge it, have a moment to be with that feeling, and then move on in an empowering way? And the more you heal those deeper core wounds, the more money you'll make, the more love you'll have, the greater health and energy and vitality and sleep you'll have. Like, these are all real physical, tangible results that come out of it. And there's so much science happening in the world today, validating all these things that we used to think was woo-woo. And now it's actually becoming really more mainstream.
It's an exciting time to be living at this intersection of science and spirituality, or science and wisdom tradition. Things, yes, that we've studied and taught for 30 years now is being validated by science. It is an exciting time. Well, Tiffany, the blind spot healer, the founder of Highly Perceptive People Academy, the host of The Soul of an Empath and The Knowing You, 2 different podcast shows that you do, soon to be a film maven in these 3 films upcoming in 2025. You have so much going on, so much to say, so much to teach. How can people find you, Tiffany Cano?
Well, if you would like to receive a 15-minute complimentary blind spot strategy session, go to callwithtiffany.com. Callwithtiffany.com. My website is highlyperceptivepeopleacademy.com. And my cell phone app has a ton of free gifts. So, you can just pick it up at tiffanysapp.com. We'll show you where you can download it on Apple or your Google Play Store. And there's a ton of free, cool stuff, healings for every area of life. I have over 30 plus online courses, 16 plus guided meditations, several songs. There's a ton of stuff. So
Beautiful.
let me help you.
That's awesome. You are definitely here to serve, and we really appreciate that about you. Tiffany, it's great to have you on the show. Great to be your collaborator, colleague, and friend. So thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.